Awesome. All right. Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us here. I'm going to give a few seconds to let people kind of start to wander on in, mosey on in type of a thing. And so, to get a little pop quiz action going on for everybody in attendance, you should have just received a poll kind of pop up on your screen here. This is for us to get a rough idea as to kind of who all is signing in. So, if you have a moment, hop on in there, answer that question as to kind of what best describes you. And I'm actually going to participate. So, Ronnie, if you do see that, oh, I can't even vote, so I'm not allowed to vote. Okay, so this is all you guys. But yeah, please take a moment, fill that out. We love to know who all we're able to kind of reach, who all's in attendance, to be able to also help us figure out what types of material and things to potentially incorporate and include for next time. So there in the chat section as well, you'll be able to kind of message me during this presentation, after the presentation, with any questions, comments, and things of that nature that you may have. But also too, as you're signing in, feel free, share who you are, where you're from. We love to be able to, again, kind of see all the different locations where everybody's kind of tuning in from. So to get that aspect started, again, while everyone's rolling in, please chime on in there in the chat, who you are, where you're from, type of a thing. But I'll kind of get us started with describing, if this transitions for me here. There we go. Who I am. So I'm Jay Short. I am a registered dietitian here at My Sports Dietitian. A little bit of my background. I am a certified specialist in sports dietetics. I started out as a performance nutrition research dietitian at The Ohio State University. So I got a little bit of that nerdy side of being able to get the lab work in. And then from there, went on to the application side of things, being the first full-time dietitian with the Columbus Crew, getting that experience there. And then currently, I am the consulting dietitian for the U.S. men's national team. So a lot of soccer kind of going on in my background there. And then as far as for everybody else kind of joining us, I did see somebody pop in from Hawaii. So aloha to you as well. That is absolutely one of the best places that I've ever been in my life. My wife and I went for our honeymoon. So super jealous, getting a lot of flashbacks just seeing that pop up, but thank you for attending. And so, yeah, again, everybody hopping in, fill out that lovely little section there in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're from. Again, we love to know a little bit about you as well. And then also, too, you should have just had another kind of poll question pop up. And this is just roughly, what is your age? To be able to, again, figure out who all we have kind of in attendance, who all we're reaching, and what our overall presentation and message is going out to. So we appreciate taking the time to fill all that out. Greatly appreciated there. But definitely, I'm going to kind of go ahead, get started here. And again, at any point, if you do have any questions, feel free there in the chat section, fire away. If anything pops up, sparks an interest, questions, comments, anything like that, let us know. There at the end, we'll come back, we'll rehash everything, and I'll make sure that I get to as many questions as I possibly can. So again, thank you all for joining, and we're going to kind of jump on forward here. So the big thing, what all are we going to be diving into? What all are we going to learn with this presentation? The big things are what we need to know before we go with travel nutrition. So you got to have that plan. That P word is definitely something that's going to be reiterated a lot. So know before you go, what are the things that we need to be focusing on? What are the options to keep on hand for snacks? What to pack? Hydrating while we're traveling, keeping up with our overall energy needs based on what we're traveling for the competition, for preseason, all those types of things. And then we got 2 case studies to be able to kind of go over, get us thinking a little bit about different situations of how we might be able to apply these things. And then there at the end, get into those lovely questions. So again, for everybody kind of coming in, hop on into the chat stream, let us know who you are, where you're from, and that's also too where to feel free to fire off any questions that you may have. So to kick things off here then, know before you go. The big thing with this is, again, just having that game plan. We want to make sure that we're packing accordingly and having everything that we need. So if we're on a bus ride or a car trip, we want to make sure that we're packing food so that way we don't have to rely on any of those roadside stops or rely on any kind of terminals at the airport for everything to be available there. We want to have those things on hand to be able to, again, make sure that anything that we need, we have ready and available and are good to go there. So to help with that, you got to start planning your feeling around that competition schedule. How many days are you traveling? What training sessions are you going to have while you're there? Is it a quick fly in, fly out, same day type of a thing? Whatever that is, you need to know that schedule and plan accordingly for that. Packing the drink water bottle. I don't care how you're traveling, whether you're running to wherever you're going or driving, bus, train, plane, have a water bottle. You need to make sure that you're staying hydrated. And then during travel as well, since you aren't necessarily being as active, you got to keep that in consideration a little bit as well for what those fueling requirements are. How long of a travel is it? Is it just a 1 hour drive? Or are you going international? You flying overseas? How long is this? And then making sure that those fueling requirements that you and your athletes need are meeting that. And so all of this, again, comes back to planning. Plan ahead. Make sure you know what the options are that are going to be available for those meals and snacks, whether it's on the plane, on the bus, and balance everything else accordingly. Take everything else that you need to fill in those gaps. And then also do a little research ahead. What restaurants and grocery stores are going to be near the hotel or the locations that you're playing, practicing, and staying at to be able to, again, make sure that you see that big picture of what's there, what you need, and how you're going to get it. So as for what to be focusing on, it's going to be the same foundation, the same fundamentals as when you're home. We want to make sure that we have that good quality protein. We want to make sure that we've got some solid whole grains, getting some good carbohydrates in there. We got to make sure that we've got the healthy fats and plenty of fiber. Still got to focus on that overall nutrition, gut health, and nutrient absorption. And then hydration. Again, you're never going to get away from it. Make sure you keep that water bottle on hand. So in regards to what are the things that we need to make sure that we're packing? Going back to the hydration piece right off the bat, have that empty water bottle. There's always going to be drinking fountains available at any of typically bus stops will typically have a bit of a drinking fountain there as well, but a lot of the airport terminals and things like that, fill that up, have it on hand. Before you hop in the car, make sure that you have that water bottle filled and ready to go. Bring in some electrolyte packets as well, especially if it's a day where you know you're traveling the day of the competition. Make sure that you have your electrolytes in, help with that water absorption, help stay hydrated, have all that ready to go. And then again, this comes back to that planning. Make sure you have those appropriate snacks that you need, but also ensuring that they're shelf stable. You want to make sure that while you're traveling, nothing's going to go bad in your bag. The last thing you want is to open up that duffel bag and all of a sudden get kind of punched in the face with the smell of something that went bad. So plan ahead, plan accordingly on those types of things. And then also don't forget any supplements that you take regularly. And also with that too, though, if traveling, whether going through the airport, flying internationally or anything like that, double check and make sure that you're aware of those regulations to make sure that anything that you are traveling with checks those boxes and you're going to be okay with traveling with them. Now for the hydration specifically, and in particular on planes, this is an area that we really want to be mindful of to make sure that we keep that water bottle on hand. Because from the combination of the altitude and the recycled air of everything going on in the airplane itself, it is very easy to become dehydrated. The air in the plane is very dry. And when you inhale and exhale, your body is using moisture to help that air come in, and also it's exhaling air. So if we're not rehydrating and not drinking anything during that time, we're losing quite a bit of water, therefore leaving us susceptible of being dehydrated upon landing. And especially again, if we're traveling on the day of competition, you do not want to be landing dehydrated. So keep that water bottle on hand. A good cadence as to how much to be drinking would be about 8 ounces per hour, 1 cup. It's a good rule of thumb to be able to get that started, to be able to help again, keep us hydrated and help us land in that hydrated state. Because every every study out there, I don't care who you are, what sport you play, you're going to do better if you're hydrated. But also too, it's going to help decrease some of that jet lag that tends to occur, especially for those super long flights. If you're going anything international, when it is a lengthy flight, you'll want to make sure you're staying hydrated. And then again, for those electrolytes, especially if it's on the day of the competition, keep those packets on hand, add them to the water bottle, and make sure that you're taking care of all your hydration needs. So some rough examples for some snacks potentially on travel day itself. If you know you're going to be gone for kind of a mealtime, yeah, maybe we want to pack kind of a quick grab and go type sandwich. So whole wheat wraps with some deli meats and veggies can be absolutely perfect. And then some other easier kind of grab and go options can be things like the granola bar, trail mix, cheese sticks, fruit, goldfish, pretzels, and some protein shakes can be things just to keep in mind, but also keep in mind, how are you traveling? Things that you can take on a plane are going to be a little bit different than things that you're going to be taking in the car with you. But just keep that in mind. Are you going to be gone during a meal? And do you need to make sure to pack accordingly for that? And then upon arrival, where are you going to be staying? If you're going to be spending the night and you're going to be staying in the hotel room, do you have access to a refrigerator? Most, I would say, do, even if it's just that lovely little mini fridge. So if you're going to be there for a couple days or any extended amount of time, if you did that research in advance to figure out what grocery stores may be available, walk through them real quick, make a quick run out, grab some fruit, grab some deli meat and cheese, some yogurt, some hard-boiled eggs, and some raw veggies and nuts. Provide all of those good foundational snacks that you're going to be able to store a little bit easier in the hotel room itself. And the other types of snacks that you're going to want to focus on a little bit are some of the slow fuel and the sustained energy. So some of those complex carbohydrates with some of the fat as well, to be able to help keep those energy levels up. So lovely fruit and nut bars. My personal favorite has been since I was in grade school, peanut butter. And honestly, myself, I'm a honey guy. So a PB&H sandwich can be fantastic. But these are all options and great sources of kind of some of those complex carbs. Because again, if we're traveling in somewhere, we've got that competition around the corner. We want to make sure that we're getting those carbohydrates in there as well. And with that, going in preparation for those training sessions or for the competition, we want to make sure that we also have some of those quicker and fast acting carbohydrates on hand as well, to be able to help pre-workout and during the workout as well. So applesauce, now they come in those awesome, easily transportable pouches that you can just kind of rip the top off and it's a nice squeeze. Those are perfect. Fruit cups, fruit snacks, sports gels, fruit juice, sports drinks, energy chews. There's an abundance of items out there nowadays, but we want to make sure that we're packing appropriately for them, to make sure, again, when we get to our workouts, that we have those types of foods on hand as well. And then once those training sessions are done, then we need to make sure we're recovering properly. And so protein is going to be that key component there as well. We want to make sure that we have items on hand to be able to fill that need. So whether we're getting that kind of from the beef jerky, cheese sticks, hard-boiled eggs, yogurt, protein powder, or if we're going to make kind of a full meal out of it to incorporate some carbohydrates to replenish those glycogen stores as well, we can have things like chocolate milk, a general recovery shake and smoothie, and deli sandwiches as well. Putting all those things together in one lovely package to get the protein, the carbs, incorporate a little fat in there as well, and you'll be good to go. But again, it comes back to that planning piece of making sure that you know what options you need to have on hand and how you're going to acquire them. And then again, it's navigating what your energy needs are going to be from the day to day. For long travel days itself, yeah, you're going to be sitting and fairly sedentary. So you may not need as many calories in that moment. So planning and packing accordingly to make sure that we're not necessarily just mindlessly snacking. But then also too, we need to make sure that we're keeping up our calories in preparation for the competition and practices. So especially if we're traveling on the day of the competition, we still need to make sure that we're fueling up for it. We're providing our body with the calories that we're about to expend. So know what the schedule is, know what those caloric needs are. And then also, too, make sure that we have those staple food items that we're accustomed to. Rule number one is no new foods, no new strategies on game day. We want to stick with those tried and trues, those food items that we've had before. We know how we feel with them and we know how our body's going to respond to them. On game days, that's not necessarily the time to go and try that new sushi place across the street that you just saw. Stick with the fundamentals, stick with the things that you know, and make sure that you have them on hand, whether you pack and take them with you or that you know there's a grocery store where you can acquire those things. Another thing that can be really big too is know the weather in advance. So, with international travel and now with competition stretching all across the globe, depending on where you're going, that environment and that weather can be completely different from your hometown. So, you need to look in advance a little bit to know where you're going. If you're going from one extreme temperature to the other, the body's going to need a little adaptation time. So if you're going, for example, from cold to a hot environment, you're going to need some increased sodium. You're going to need some increased fluid. And then if going to a cold environment, focus on making sure that we have some warm items, those things that are going to sound a little bit more appealing and be a little bit more palatable, such as, yeah, if it's sub-freezing out, a hot chocolate is going to sound a little bit more appetizing than a slushy. So making sure that you have those types of items on hand and plan ahead accordingly. And another thing too is if you know you're going to a place in particular where it's going to be very cold, make sure that the snacks and the beverages that you are packing are packaged in a manner to where they won't freeze. The last thing you want is to have your one and only water bottle that you're counting on to be able to drink during competition be a frozen ice cube on the sideline. So make sure that whatever type of weather environment that you're going into, you have those items and needs accordingly. And then for lovely international travel, the big things is definitely make sure you're aware of where you're going. And rule number one, don't forget your passport. You don't want to get stranded anywhere. You want to make sure that you can get there. Don't forget your passport. And so with that though, once we have gotten there and everything, we've got the passport, we want to make sure that we're aware of what the water situation is. Different countries have different water safety cautions and needs and concerns. So just be aware of where you're going. Is it okay to be drinking tap water? Do you need to make sure that you're only drinking out of bottled water? And if the water's a little questionable, what are the food items that you're having? Are they washing their fruits with that water? So if you go to eat the fruit, are you consuming the water that way? So be mindful of the water safety, be mindful of the culinary customs. So they may prepare their foods in a completely different manner than what you're accustomed to. So a stir fry in one area may not be the same stir fry in another. So know what those customs are, know what those types of dishes are, to again make sure that if you're ordering a dish, and especially if it's on game day, that you know what that dish is. You don't want a surprise in that situation. And to help with that, pack those familiar items, pack those staples, pack those comfort items that you know how you respond to, that you know sits well for you, and keep them on hand. So when traveling, international travel is great. It's fantastic to be able to experience different cultures, experience different lifestyles, but save that for after the competition. Embrace that experience afterwards when you're not focusing on the competition and you're okay with being a little bit more flexible type of things, to where if something doesn't necessarily sit overly well, it's okay. You're not about to go play a game in an hour. So focus on saving those for after the competition. And so a couple case studies just to get you guys kind of thinking a little bit is for this one, we've got lovely Michael, a freshman in college, traveling with his baseball team for an away game. First time in charge of his own away fueling since starting college. So yeah, you go from high school where you have that little extra assistance from the parents and boosters being able to help provide some of the food on the sidelines and things for games of that manner. Now he's on his own. So what types of food items is he going to need for the practice? What's he going to need in the dugout for the games? What is he going to need from a hydration standpoint? And typically, how are they traveling? Are they going to be on a bus? Are they on plane? What all does he need to have? Case study number 2, we have Lauren, a junior in high school playing basketball. Typically, the team mom is in charge of packing the snacks and the water for all the tournaments, but this weekend, not quite the case. The team is left in charge of their own snacks and hydration since they're going to be flying and the team mom is going to be unavailable there. So this is the first time that Lauren has had to pack for herself and is feeling just a little overwhelmed. So she still needs to make sure that she's bringing all of those proper items that she needs from the hydration standpoint, from an energy standpoint, to where if it's a tournament, you have multiple games that you're preparing for. So making sure that we have those snack combinations of good quality carbs going into the practice, as well as some of the protein carb combinations for after the practice. So thinking through that whole calendar of things and planning, again, in advance for it. So in general, the big questions that we can start to kind of ask ourselves are, how often are you eating per day on travel days? And that's going to give you a good idea of how much food you need to pack, how many snacks you're going to need. Because again, you're most likely going to need a little bit less on some of those travel days, depending on how long you're going to be kind of sitting. Then, are the snacks you packed well-rounded? Are you covering all of those foundational needs? Do you have the fat, the carbs, the protein? Making sure that you check all of those boxes. Have you planned out in advance of what restaurants and grocery stores are around the hotel and the practice facilities? Are you able to acquire those things there, or do you need to pack them? So knowing what those options are and what the availability of things are in the destination that you're going to. Then, are you sticking to your normal routine? As you go through that schedule, as you go through that calendar of things, do you have the food and the ability to acquire the food to help maintain that routine, to help make sure that you get your body in a great spot to be able to go out and perform your best and do what you do? And then last but not least, are you sticking to your hydration and sleep goals? We need to make sure that we have that water bottle in hand, that we're staying hydrated, that during the travel, we continue to drink. And yes, during travel, it's okay if you need to use the plane or the bus restroom. That's what they're there for. It's okay. So don't try to avoid hydrating, avoid drinking because you don't want to use the restroom. You need to hydrate. In the long run, it'll totally be worth it. And then the other thing too is make sure that we're getting adequate rest. It can be a little bit tough sometimes to sleep in a new hotel, new bed, new environment type of a thing, but do your best. Make sure you're giving yourself at least the proper amount of time in bed to be able to optimize those sleep goals. So all in all, to kind of wrap things up a little bit, the big action items in the review is prioritize your hydration and energy needs. Make sure that you have everything that you need and where you're getting it from. Stick to what you do at home. No new foods on game days. Make sure that you have those staples and those fundamental items that are key to you on hand, or that you ensure you have the ability to acquire upon arrival. And then pack a variety of snacks. Pack the bag. I always encourage overpacking. It's always easy to take the snacks back home. We're going for shelf-stable items. Again, they're not going to spoil. You can take them back with you. But once you're there, once you're at the field and at the competition, it's a lot harder to be able to then all of a sudden magically make those items appear. So pack a variety of snacks, keep them on hand, and then know your schedule. Schedule your feeling around the travel and competition and know when are your meals, when are your snacks, when are your trainings, and make sure everything lines up well and that you have a plan for all of those moments in eating windows. So make sure that you have everything lined up there. And if interested and wanting a couple grab and go kind of quick tips, this right here is the lovely QR codes. They're everywhere nowadays. You can snap a picture of this. It'll take you to a great resource where you'll be able to gain a little bit more information and a few more tips on feeling on the go. So a lovely quote as well. Every champion was once a contender that refused to give up. So we're all contending for something. We need to make sure that we're putting ourselves in the best spot possible. So plan for that. Make sure that you have everything on hand to be able to make sure, again, that we give ourselves the best chance to be that champion. And then here, last but not least, giving you guys a little bit of a sneak peek as to what we have going on here at My Sports Dietitian. This right here is a great resource that we call My Nutrition Plan. With this program, we're going to be able to offer you guys 2 weeks of free sports nutrition coaching. Yep, free. The big F word, free. 2 weeks of it. And it's going to give you access to be able to work with a highly qualified sports dietitian, myself being one of them included, to be able to develop a program for you to work on managing body weight goals, the pre-game meal planning, daily nutritional strategies to accomplish those goals, personalized supplement protocols, and we'll have weekly check-ins to be able to help with that accountability and continue to build and develop those habits to keep you performing well. And on top of that too, yeah, we'll touch on the travel nutrition to make sure that you've got your own travel schedule and travel structure set up and in place, ready to go. So if this is something interesting to you that you would like to sign up for, this is going to be our early bird special. So with another one of those lovely QR codes, feel free, scan that code, and it's going to send you to a page where you're going to be able to join a wait list to be able to get $30 off per month for the first and only first 100 subscribers. So when I say $30 off, yes, the first 2 weeks are free. And then if wanting to continue with that, we'll have that $30 discount code attached to your profile to then be able to pick things up and keep things going thereafter. So with that, that's our travel nutrition right there. So appreciate the time, guys. And now I'm going to open it up a little bit and leave it available for you guys to ask any questions that you may have. So I'm just going to hang out, chill here for a little bit. So feel free there within the chat section. If you have any questions, feel free, fire it on over. And in particular, if anybody was interested still with that coaching piece, I'm going to share my screen again to be able to have that up and available just in case anybody wasn't able to scan that code. So bingo. So we got that right up there. So feel free. I'm trying to double check and see if I can get that chat box up as well. But feel free, reach out. If you have questions, let me know. Bingo, there we go. So I got the chat up. I've got one question here. Tips for adjusting to a new time zone. Yeah, the time zones are always a lovely challenge, especially if you're going from west to east and you're losing a little bit of sleep. The biggest thing that I would recommend is sleep early. If you're able to go a day early to really help the body get acclimated and get into the groove, perfect. But a lot of times that's outside of our control. So a big thing that I would encourage is try to get yourself into a routine before you leave. So if you know you're going to end up having to wake up a little bit earlier in the new destination that you're traveling to, start yourself going to bed a little bit earlier, start yourself waking up a little bit earlier to start to get the body acclimated to what that new routine and that new schedule is going to be. So that way, once you arrive, it's not as big of a shock to the system. We started to ease the body into that just a little bit. And so while it won't necessarily be a perfect setup to be able to completely eliminate any potential jet lag and things like that, it absolutely will just help the body to be able to get started with it. Now, if you're going from east to west and you're gaining that time, usually that's a lot easier because then you're going to be tired a little bit earlier. So we're going to have that tendency to go to bed earlier. And then breakfast is going to be a little bit later. So we get to sleep in. So a lot of times going from east to west, we actually have improved sleep. So the biggest thing is usually when going from west to east, do your body as best of a good service as you can and try to get it acclimated just by moving that bedtime up a little bit earlier and then also waking up just a little bit earlier. And then also too with that, when traveling, a lot of times it's very easy for us that when we're on the plane, going through the airport and everything, grabbing a cup of coffee, try not to do that. Allow your body to allow itself to get tired naturally. So once you do land in that new area, you're able to acclimate yourself, get onto that schedule a little bit easier, and fall asleep a little bit easier and a little bit quicker. So be mindful of the caffeine component of things as well. Um, Christina, our volleyball team will use small dose melatonin when they arrive. Going from Hawaii anywhere mainland is a big time zone difference, and this helps. Absolutely. Yes, they get 2 days before any game so they can adjust. That is absolutely fantastic, Christina. And so definitely the melatonin being able to provide that absolutely starts getting the body to naturally start that slow down process to be able to help us get to sleep. One thing that I would recommend in addition to that as well would be some tart cherry juice. So the tart cherry juice is naturally going to be able to help provide some of that melatonin and help with that production already intrinsically within the body itself. So in addition to being a great antioxidant, it's going to help with that sleep component too. So definitely feel free incorporate that piece as well. I know I want to say Cherubundi has some great products too that are pretty well transportable. Adriana, are there any food brands in grocery stores you would recommend avoiding? For example, when looking for nutrition bars, if you know certain brands have more sugar and things like that. So, in general, when it comes to things to be mindful of when packing snacks and what to grab and gravitate towards, again, the big thing is what are we grabbing the snacks for? What is the intention? What is the purpose? Is it to sustain our energy kind of during the flight? If so, we want to make sure that we do have some of the good carbohydrates, that we have a little bit of protein in there. If we're packing the snacks for a pre workout of having something before we go into training itself, we want to make sure it's a little bit simpler carbohydrates and therefore doesn't contain too much fiber. So, in that type of situation, the big thing that I typically recommend is to watch out for any kind of those protein bars. A lot of them tend to be pretty high in the fiber component and they really boost that. A lot of them tend to kind of go for that net carb aspect to be able to slap that on the label of 1 gram net carb. Well, the way they do that is pump it full of 20 grams of fiber. So that can cause a little bit of GI distress for some individuals. So be mindful of that. But yeah, the big thing is more so just understand what the purpose and the intent of that snack is supposed to be, and then double check that nutrition label to accommodate for it. What is the carb content? What's that protein content? What's the fiber content? Those are probably the big things. So there isn't necessarily anything that I would say to for sure avoid, but it's just knowing again what's the situation that we're having it for. Another question: what are best snacks in a typical airport if I did not plan ahead? This good question. And it definitely differs from airport to airport. So I've seen my fair share, and they're all completely different. There's the options available in a small airport of Appleton, Wisconsin, and then you have a whole nother one of Atlanta, Georgia. Two completely different environments, two completely different offerings. So in general, though, Starbucks seems to be pretty abundantly available anywhere. They do offer more than just coffee. So they can be a great place to go to where if you're needing kind of a sandwich, a lot of them now are providing kind of deli meat sandwiches, which can be great. A lot of them can provide kind of some egg bites as well, if just needing some quick protein. If needing carbohydrates, they have a couple granola bars and things like that as well that you're able to grab and go there. So Starbucks, love their coffee. Can also be a great resource for the snack component as well. In general, though, some other things are trail mix. That is one of my big time favorites to grab and go. It's going to have that good component of typically some carbs in there in one way, shape, or form. It'll have some fat and a little bit of protein from some of the nuts. And usually, just for personal enjoyment, it's got a little bit of chocolate in there. Not the biggest chocolate guy, but every so often when you incorporate it into something like that, yeah, I can be a sucker for it. So having trail mix is great. And then also beef jerky is a great thing as well. So especially if I know that I need to make sure that I get the protein needs up, or if this is something that I'm grabbing to be able to have for after a training when I land, I want to make sure that we've got the protein component there. So the beef jerky can be great and typically is going to be pretty abundantly available. And then if knowing again that we have that training, grabbing a sports drink, whether it be from a vending machine or one of the general kind of carry out type areas that most of them have too. So those are typically the main go-tos that I would recommend there. So going through that chat stream again, I believe that is everything. Oh, we got another one. Snuck it on in there. So this question is good sources of protein for vegan or vegetarian diets. Ooh, great question. And this is usually kind of a tougher one too. Just because these types of items typically aren't as abundantly available. They're definitely becoming more regularly available. But a lot of times the protein bar section is going to be one of your best bets to be able to look and find some of those vegan, vegetarian type options in there. So Garden of Life is a great brand, fairly popular brand that I believe is fairly abundantly available. So that can be a good option. But then also too, sometimes looking to see what milk options are available. So many places are starting to incorporate some soy milk as well to be able to provide a little bit of protein there. So those are kind of the main recommendations that I would have for that. It's definitely a tougher thing to be able to have and find in those situations. So a lot more planning will absolutely need to go into that to be able to make sure that we're packing the snacks appropriately to match those accommodations. And so another thing too, it's not necessarily overly abundantly high in protein, but a lot of kind of chickpeas can incorporate a little bit of protein and are typically in kind of that chip section to where they have the roasted chickpeas to be able to provide a little bit of a crunch, provide a little bit of protein. So it can fill that need a little bit. No, not necessarily quite to the extent that we would typically need for our athletes, but still something to be able to kind of provide something. Do another question we have here: airport lounges with food, ever a good idea? If you're hungry, it's a great idea. Absolutely. So a lot of those places, most of it just kind of comes down to, again, what are the options? What are they serving? If it's something where it's essentially just purely kind of fried chicken, French fries type of a thing, we may want to give some serious consideration as to whether that's the best option available throughout the entire airport. Otherwise, if it's kind of a typical restaurant where you're going to be able to find a burger, you're going to be able to find a salad type of a thing, yeah, you're going to be okay. It may not be a five-star restaurant, but it will be able to, again, check those boxes. You can get a grilled chicken sandwich with some fruit or veggies on the side. Those types of items are fairly common and fairly regular and abundantly available. So especially if it's a competition day traveling, we want to keep things pretty basic. We want to keep things away from the fried side of things. So a lot of times a simple grilled chicken sandwich, throw some lovely ketchup and mustard, whatever fits your fancy on top, and then have that side. Whether it be, if they have kind of a baked potato, perfect to get a little extra carbohydrates in there. Or if you have some extra time to be able to make sure that you can digest it, side salads, fruits, those types of things can be great as well. But in general, yeah, I want it right off the airport lounge just because it's the airport lounge. Give them a chance, check out the menu, but definitely do the due diligence, go through that and see what some of the more ideal and optimal options are. Great questions, everybody. So I'm going to kind of linger here for a little bit longer just to see if any other questions do trickle in. But again, I greatly appreciate you all signing on, hopping into the presentation here. Great questions. And if any other questions do pop up after we close here today, which I'm going to say we are wrapping up, feel free, reach on out to us. We're always here, more than happy to help answer any questions that you may have, want, need. But also, too, feel free again, check out the 2 free weeks of that one-on-one consulting. If you're an athlete and you're looking for somebody to help put that game plan for you specifically and really hone in on your nutrition, give us a call. We're here for you. But if you have any questions about that as well, also too, feel free to reach out. But otherwise, thank you all again for being here. An absolute pleasure being able to present. And yeah, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening.